Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And here today we are talking about chipped footballs that they've put chips in to track stats, all sorts of other things, and how that is happening in the CFL. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe before we get into all this, so that way you guys don't miss another video. Maybe even click on that notification bell, all that hot jazz. However, this was a big talking point this week, as most notably Sergio Castillo had, let's just say, not one of his typical weeks, and I think he missed, I think it was 3 kicks if we're counting conversions. It was not your ideal week for Mr. Sergio Castillo. He comes out and comments on these chip balls and the usage of them. He goes, yeah, I have 1 for 3 on field goals, 1 for 3 on field goal attempts. However, I think he misses 2 converts. And, before, everyone starts to kind of get on the trail of, okay, well, he was just missing them, blah, 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 blah. However, then it kind of seems like then afterwards a bunch of other kickers start coming out, and league-wide this seems like a bit of an issue until eventually they would deal with it. But what do you think about the situation with all this going on, Rick?
I mean, it depends on who you talk to. Some people are just, it is what it is type thing. Some people are just saying that those people are making excuses because they missed kicks.
We'll have to see. Now, one thing I will say is that the fact that there's a common consensus on this within the kickers in the CFL says something. In the sense of, if a guy who was hitting all of his kicks said that there was no sort of effect, you can maybe wonder, okay, well, maybe this is, I'm not doing well, so it's easier to blame it on this rather than my own performance. But if even the kickers that have done well with these chip balls are saying that it absolutely affects the kicks, I think that is an important thing to mention. And one thing I will say is that, first off, how do I feel about the tracking of stats? I love it. I think the more stats that you can track, the better. The problem I have is when the act of tracking stats actually interferes with the game itself, and it makes it so these players can't play it the way that they normally would or the way it's meant to be played. That is when I start running into an issue, because now it's like one of those things where it's like how good are these stats? How good are these stats if they're just stats that are not reflective of the player and are maybe causing them to miss kicks that they otherwise would have hit? I want to kind of hear your guys' comments about this in the comment section down below. So I'm seeing 2 sides of the debate. Some very, very much with the kickers on this, and some very, very much about being like, you know what? You guys are making excuses. You guys should be hitting these. Now, since then, I think it's important to mention the CFL has now made it, and they had an announcement that went out, that these balls will still be in use. However, they are now no longer mandatory and optional for clubs to use. Also known as, I don't think we're seeing any club using it, unless maybe a kicker who's doing well in it, is starting to feel comfortable with it. And you know what? I want to roll with this for the future. We'll have to see on that. But overall, it's one of those things where this is kind of a bit of a strange thing. As like, Rick, had you heard that the CFL had introduced these chip balls before kind of all these talking points?
Not really.
I had no idea. So here's now a question I have for you. Just because I think you remember it was last year we had done a video on, I wanna check back on it. The name of it, I think it was called PFF. Was that what it was called? The analytical
Yes.
organization that's working with them? Do you think that maybe this is part of that?
I mean,
because they do work in advanced analytics. So I'm just curious about if this affects their partnership in any regard.
I mean, I didn't even... So apparently, from with what I was talking with other fans during the tailgating at Toronto and BC's game today, is the chip is not no ordinary chip.
Okay.
Like, apparently, I don't know how truthful it is. The chip is apparently the size of I wouldn't say the inside of the football, but it has to be a big chip if it's going to keep track of where the ball is. Because if you think about it, the Now I know we're talking about CFL here. NFL, I was saying that they're not even using the yard people next year. So are they going to chip balls, and is that what they're doing? Because they're apparently, if the ball can tell you where like what line they're at, like, you know what I mean? Because it's
Interesting. That's
controlling
such a strange
stats.
idea. Just because apparently these chip balls, I heard they were used in the USFL last year, and they were actually scrapped after only 2 weeks of using them. And now we're hearing about them getting used in the Canadian Football League, and not
Now,
even 1 week in, they're making these
don't
not
get me wrong.
mandatory.
If you're going to use them for quarterback thrown to the receiver, not for kicking. Like, what do
But
you need to prove when you're
that's if it doesn't
kicking?
affect the throw. I'm gonna assume they were probably using those already with that, and not just for kicks. I could be wrong. Maybe they weren't. But the real usage of these chips, possibly, if they do. Well, actually, here's the thing I'm curious about then, because you're talking about how they might get rid of the down markers and use them in the NFL in that regard. How does that work? Because the yardage shouldn't be measured to the tracker within the ball, but to the tip of the football itself. So unless the tracker extends
That's what
directly
I'm
to the
saying. I'm
tip.
pretty sure the chip in the football is not just like little itty bitty microchip. It's
So it's
probably
really
big.
connected all throughout the interior of the football, which, yeah, I could definitely see how that could run into some issues for some kickers. It's such a, it's interesting because we live in such a strange time when it comes to sports, in the sense of that all these things are getting added. Whether you're watching the NHL and they're digitally covering up the boards with all these graphics all over the place, it's getting put onto the damn glass behind the play. All the ads on the ice, some of them are there, some of them are fake, all this sort of stuff. Um, all these advanced analytics that are being tracked for, and this is not just a hockey thing or a football thing. These are all kinds of sports. We're talking about footballs that have microchips in them. Hockey's been doing this for years with their pucks, chips in them to track shot speeds, all this sort of stuff. And so now actually seeing it having a bit of a negative effect, it's just, it's such a strange thing that I really think if you look back years ago, they never, that some people, I wouldn't say everyone, would have never predicted that this is kind of the direction that sports was going. So it's, you know,
But now the question is, now that the league's given the people the option of what ball you want to use with what game, do you think kickers would still use it? Would they not use it
the only
anymore?
kickers that I think would even consider using it were the ones that did pretty good with them in week one. And even then, it's one of those things where
But the thing
if they
is,
start not doing so well, they might.
so here's the thing:
Yeah.
is they announced it Friday afternoon that the teams had the option.
Yep.
So really, did Calgary and Hamilton use it or not?
That's a great question. I don't know if in week one, besides the Montreal Winnipeg game, if those balls were used. So I think that would be something really interesting to look into and see exactly what that result was. But it's very possible that some of the kickers that did pretty well afterwards just straight up, now that they had the option, didn't use it. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I wanted to kind of do a video on that just because this is such a unique topic within the CFL. There's, you know, we're talking about some stuff with the NFL. We're talking about some stuff with the USFL. So we can see that other leagues have experimented with this. We can see that other leagues are even still considering that sort of a route. And so it's just interesting talking about the CFL ramifications of that. But I don't think there's anything else we have to go through with that. I think it was a pretty kind of small topic, small video to go through. Is there anything else you got there, Rick?
No.
No? So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you have. I told you at the start of the video. If you have not already, make sure you guys check out our week one review that came out just earlier today. And then tomorrow we will be doing our interview with Calgary Stampeders linebacker Micah Ah. Make sure you got, and that interview will be going live on the Wednesday around noonish, I believe, Central Standard Time, which would be 1 p.m. Eastern. At least that is, I think that's the plan time. But if you guys have any questions for Micah Ah, linebacker for the Stampeders, you guys can leave that in the comment section down below, or you can leave it on our Instagram or Twitter/X, where we will have promotional posts go out about to them. So make sure you guys do that, and make sure you guys just take care. See you next time.